Kentucky ran into a buzzsaw. And let's just be honest. Kentucky wasn't winning tonight. Auburn might not have won tonight. Ole Miss was a team that was on a mission, and they learned from Saturday. Ole Miss is the victor. Let's talk about it right after this.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Let's instantly overreact to Ole Miss completely dominating the Kentucky Wildcats. That was the best first half of basketball Ole Miss has ever had in its history, I think. It was a situation they scored 54 points. They shot 60% from the field. They had 0 turnovers, like 11 or 12 assists. It was a complete first half, and Kentucky dug themselves a hole that they just couldn't get out of. Ole Miss won 98-84. But Ole Miss in the second half got up 27 points and kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. You could see the moment where the defensive intensity kind of dropped down. Kentucky was able to kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm. And whenever that happened, Ole Miss kind of let Kentucky chip away at the lead. But make no mistake, Kentucky never got below 10 points in this game. This game was over at the 10-minute mark in the first half, essentially. But Ole Miss did to Kentucky what Kentucky normally does to Ole Miss. Let's be real about this. And this is why this game is special. If Ole Miss won 95 times in a row, the series would be tied. So celebrate this win. The 98 points, that's the most points that Ole Miss has ever scored against the Kentucky basketball team. This is the 15th win in the series history against Kentucky. Celebrate this win. Ole Miss doesn't take Kentucky apart like this. They just don't. In their history, they do not do this. So enjoy this. This was fantastic. And it was nice that it seemed like such an ass whooping that happened in the first half of that game to where it just didn't matter what Kentucky did. Ole Miss was just going to win that game, and they were going to win it going away. I'm very excited. In this game, it was Matthew Murrell showed up for the first time in a while. He looked like his old self, even dunked one time in the game. Ended up over 20 points, had an amazing hot shooting start in the first half that kind of propelled Ole Miss to that big lead. I think they got up 23 points at halftime as part of them scoring 54 points. Ole Miss didn't quite break 100, but 98 will have to do. Juju Murray, double-double in the game. Not the way you would think, but he had 15 points. He had 10 assists. Sean Padula had 8 points and 8 assists. He almost went double-double as well. And for the game, Ole Miss had 24 assists and only 1 turnover. Ole Miss dominated this game. Now, I realize that Kentucky is defensively challenged. They are. It's kind of sad to see a Kentucky basketball team this bad at playing defense. You're not really used to seeing that. You used to see games to where Kentucky needed a run or something like that, and they turn up the defensive intensity and everything and just out-athlete you. That is what would happen. But this game is almost like there is no third gear on the Kentucky defense, and you're going to have open looks at the baskets, and if you can make shots, you will take them apart. Kentucky actually shot the ball fairly well in this game. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we're going over the box score, but they shot 50% for the game, nearly 50% from three. They struggled a little bit at the free throw line, but, I mean, that didn't matter with the score being what it was. Ole Miss just completely dominated this game against the Kentucky Wildcats. Big Blue obviously did not recover from the loss they took to Calipari over the weekend. That affected their program to the point where the players came out in the first half sluggish. Ole Miss came out on a mission, and whenever gasoline meets fire, it happens. Like I said, Ole Miss fans have seen this game in reverse in Rupp Arena more times than we can count. I remember one time, and I'm going to really date myself, but this was sometime I think in the 90s. I think Joe Harvell was playing for Ole Miss at that time. I thought Ole Miss was going to get up there and do pretty well. I had decent expectations. It wasn't a tournament team, but I thought it was going to be a competitive game, and it was like 47-10 at halftime. We've seen this game on the reverse side. So respect to Kentucky, respect for what they did, but Ole Miss completely outclassed and dominated Kentucky tonight. And Ole Miss fans need to enjoy that. They need to look at this and just put a marker down as like, we did that. Should be pretty cool indeed. All right. When we come back, we will talk all about the stats from this game. A 98-84 win over the Kentucky Wildcats should be a lot of fun. So stick around. All right. Whether it's a concert or a comedy show, Game Time has the big event covered for you. Finding that right ticket at the right price, it always can be a headache, but with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you why. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It creates best deals so you don't have to waste time scrolling through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. The curated deals make it super easy to find great seats at great prices. No more searching throughout thousands of listings. I recently snagged a super deal for a prime seat at an upcoming concert. Going to see Midland in Tampa. I couldn't believe the value. It was a steal. The best part is, before I even hit buy, I could see exactly what my view would be from that part of the venue. It made the whole experience so much smoother. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. So plus your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with an easy cancellation option if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so let's look at the box score in this game real quick. Ole Miss beat Kentucky 98-84. Ole Miss shot 54.7% from the field. They were up over 60% in the first half. It was absolutely insane. Kentucky shot 50%. See, they actually shot pretty well. They were 10 of 21 on three-point shots. Ole Miss was 13 of 30. They kind of went cold at the end of the game, but it became a free throw shooting contest at that point, so it didn't matter. Ole Miss only had one turnover to Kentucky's 8. Kentucky out-rebounded Ole Miss 37-29. It was less than that magic 10 number, and Ole Miss was able to kind of take it apart. In the first half, they played them pretty well even. Kentucky was able to chip down on the lead, and they got the rebound advantage whenever that happened. Ole Miss had 14 fouls, Kentucky 16. Malik Dia had 16 points, 4 rebounds. Shampadula, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, 8 points. Matthew Murrell had 24 and 5 rebounds with 3 assists and a steal. Dre Davis had 17 points. We always talked about Dre Davis needing to step up. He had a big game today for Ole Miss. Had 3 rebounds as well, some clutch shots. His fadeaway jump shot from the elbow in the lane is pretty nice. Jaylen Murray, again, 15 points, 10 assists, 3 rebounds. Pretty great day for Jaylen Murray. He shot 3 for 5 from foul line. That's kind of out of character for him, but 2 for 4 from 3 and overall 5 of 7. Michael Brown-Jones had 2 points. Jamin Brakefield had 10. That was all in the first half whenever this was going pretty quick. Davin Barnes had 6 points. Ole Miss 98 points, 71% from the line, 43% from three-point range, 54.7, like I said, from two-point range. Kentucky had 84 points. They shot pretty well. They were led by Otega Owe, 24 points. Amari Williams had 12. Jackson Robinson, 18. Really good shooter, that kid. Kobe Bray had 10 points as well. Andrew Carr had 10 points. They had 5 players in double figures. Both teams had 5 players in double figures, and Ole Miss almost had 6. So that, I think that was pretty cool and something to kind of hang your hat on as well. So we'll see how that looks for it. All right, whenever in the third segment, we're going to have a longer third segment and get your comments on the board. Remember to put where you're commenting from and your name if it is not clear in your username. I'd like to know who's commenting and where they're commenting from. That's just what we like to do. But it's a big day for Ole Miss basketball. And we need to talk about Ole Miss is now at 6 wins in the Southeastern Conference. Another quad 1 level win. And you have a case coming up. You have a road game at LSU, which honestly, Ole Miss should probably win that game. If you do look, it's hard to win on the road, but as far as a talent advantage, that's a winnable game. Road game at South Carolina, that's a winnable game. Road game at Vanderbilt, that's a winnable game. You have Auburn on the list and you have Mississippi State at home. You're entering a stretch to where Ole Miss can make some noise. And if you want to position yourself to make a run in the NCAA basketball tournament, the next 4 or 5 games is where that's going to happen. If Ole Miss wins 3 or 4 of them, something like that, and they end up at 10 wins with the last 5 games on their schedule left to go, just kind of free shots for everybody, you might find yourself as a 4 or a 3 seed very high in the Southeastern Conference. I mean, you have a lot of stuff. Remember, this team can go far in the NCAA tournament. Don't let anybody tell you they can't, but it's going to be matchup dependent. This team isn't at the point where they can just line up and play against any style and dominate. This isn't that team. But you get into a bracket to where it just kind of all lines up, good matchup after good matchup. Yeah, this is a second weekend type of team, if that happens. But if you get into a situation to where the matchup is not favorable to Ole Miss, could be a one and done weekend team. So it could go either way. The point is, this is going to be fun if you think about it. This is going to be real fun. That Ole Miss can be in a position to where you are actively rooting one way and you can think of high hopes. You don't have the pressure of an Auburn, because Auburn's going to go into the NCAA basketball tournament, national championship or bust. If they have another Yale, it's going to be a disaster. Ole Miss, house money. If you can make it to the Sweet 16, this team can make it to the Sweet 16, which is the best finish ever in Ole Miss's basketball history. If Ole Miss does that, I mean, think about what that would do for the program. You already have electric atmospheres that are happening pretty consistently at the Pavilion. And if Ole Miss strings together some wins, if they figure out a way to beat LSU, figure out a way to beat Carolina and Mississippi State, go on a little bit of a winning streak, and you're sitting here at like 9-4 in the Southeastern Conference, then it's just house money at the end of it. And you're just playing for seeding at that point. And it'll be interesting to see how Ole Miss does. Really cool. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to take your questions, get your opinion on the big win over the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm 50 years old almost, and I have not seen many of these. So it's always good whenever Ole Miss beats Kentucky, and I enjoy it. So stick around. We'll get to them next. All right, it's comment times. For the last 17 minutes of the show, we are going to take your comments. Remember, if you comment, put your name on there. If it's not in the title, and put your location where you're commenting from, I would appreciate that. Let's start it off with Tyler Leslie. Great win, Ole Miss. I knew we would be back. Bring on LSU. Now, Ole Miss played like a whole team. That was one of those games that I've talked about. That's like, it's going to happen. Matthew Murrell is going to have one of those crazy games. I didn't think it was going to come this quick, but he completely, he just stacked up. Like, the deficit for Kentucky piled up on them so quickly, there was nothing they could do, to the point where they got completely discombobulated. And a lot of that was Matthew Murrell. And then you look at the Dre Davis and the Jamin Brakefield, and Juju Murray was absolutely fantastic. Sean Padula was great in the assist game. He didn't score many points. He didn't make any three-point shots, but he was great in the assist game. So that was pretty awesome. And it was one of the best first halves I have ever seen Ole Miss play. Randy Wilbeck says, great win, Rebels, hotty toddy. Mark Walsh from St. Louis says, great team win. I don't think anybody had a bad game. It's great to see the success spread around. This makes us dangerous. It really does. This was a big win. Fred Hogan says it's the best first half of basketball ever. James Hall says, from Brookhaven, the most complete first half I've seen Ole Miss play, offensive and defensive, in my lifetime. Second half, they came back down to earth, which I expected, but the lead was so much at that point, it didn't really matter. Great win, hotty toddy. Jake from Oxford, who was at the game, said it was a great atmospheres this year and they played very good. Yeah, it was impressive. It was impressive. And it feels pretty good to know exactly where we're sitting at the moment, because we're sitting pretty. We're sitting really pretty as a program, because Ole Miss gets the win in Baton Rouge, what they should get, gets the win in South Carolina, which they should be favored on that. Next thing you know, they're 8-4. And you're playing with house money literally the rest of the year, including Mississippi State coming to Oxford, which is going to be a difficult atmosphere for the Bulldogs, because that always happens. It doesn't matter how good the teams are. Take Mississippi State and Starkville, take Ole Miss and Oxford, and you're probably going to be right more often than not. So we'll see exactly what happens there. Tyler Leslie says, Murrell is back. Can we go a long way? We can go a long way in March. Yes. The healthier Matt Murrell gets, the more dangerous Ole Miss becomes as a basketball team. Michael McIntosh says, yeah, Kentucky sucks ass. Kentucky was ranked in the top 15. Try again, buddy. Adam Alves says, Murrell was the secret sauce to March. We go as far as he can take us, playing confident and healthy. Yes, absolutely. The healthier Matt Murrell is, the better Ole Miss is as a basketball team. And their ability to really go in March is going to be completely dependent on Matthew Murrell and matchups. Like I said before, if this team gets a good matchup, they can beat anybody. This team gets a bad matchup, it could be problematic. So we'll see exactly how it goes. But, what do I know too much? Because I thought Alabama would have been a bad matchup for Ole Miss, and Ole Miss kind of took them apart defensively. So I don't know. Matthew Irvin, would you think Murrell has to play at that level every week to get us where we want to be? Well, it depends, Matthew Irvin. What do you want to be? If you just want to make the NCAA basketball tournament, Murrell doesn't have to play at that level. If you want to be a second weekend basketball team, I think Matthew Murrell does have to play that well in the NCAA tournament. I think Ole Miss is going to get into the tournament. I think this game pretty much probably put them in the lock category of the tournament based off of who they're playing left. But for Ole Miss to advance to the second weekend and potentially beyond, because anything can happen in a tournament, Matthew Murrell does have to play like that. Gerald Parker says, man, it was so reassuring to see Matt finally have a good game. He looked healthy and had some lift in his jump shot. He even had a baseline drive and a jump. Will be scary if he's consistent. You can see how the Ole Miss fans are taking Matthew Murrell having a big game. That is a really cool deal. That was a big deal. I knew it was going to come. I thought it might have come a little bit later, but against Kentucky, yeah, he looked really good. Jeff Howell just got home from the game. What a night. Murrell is a huge key. When he is on, Ole Miss is different. Just say it. Yes, absolutely, Jeff. Congratulations, the game. It looked like a whole bunch of fun on TV and everything. I mean, Carl Ravitch and all them, they were basically talking Kentucky all night. But, okay, that's fine because they were getting beat down pretty good. Let's see. Jeff from Smyrna, Georgia says, tonight it was relentless defense, which seems to be a staple of Coach Beard. Need to be better from the stripe and shoot less fadeaway jumpers. Hotty toddy. Yeah, and the second half of the game, the first half was awesome. Malik Dia was completely on, and happy birthday to Malik Dia. I believe today is his birthday. But the second half, he lost his touch around the rim, and a lot of the cute stuff that he's able to do wasn't quite falling. And because of that, Ole Miss went into a little bit of a scoring drought. Malik Dia makes his shots up close to the rim. Ole Miss actually the lead never gets below 25 points, and Ole Miss stretches out to just a humiliating win. But Ole Miss had that little downtime. Kentucky made the run and come back. Jared Parker says second half was so lackadaisical on defense. Can't do that, but it was a great game. We really needed it. Got a manageable remaining schedule outside of playing on the road at Auburn. You also play against Florida and Tennessee. So those are there, but you're right though. It is manageable, especially if Ole Miss can win against LSU and South Carolina to where they're already at 8, to where everything's just kind of gravy after that because you're just playing for seeding. But I would agree with that. Ole Miss is going to make the top 15 by the end of the season. I think they're about to go on a run. I think we're about to go on a run as a program at Ole Miss. Jared Parker says we almost scored 100 points and our leading scorer had 8. We need to find some consistency and put it together for 40 minutes and we can beat anybody in the country. Yeah, that's the thing that people need to realize about this basketball team. There's nobody that they can't beat. There's not a matchup in the country that would be 100% other team. There's nobody that's a bridge too far. Now, Ole Miss has to play well. And we've seen what it looks like when Ole Miss plays poorly. But when Ole Miss plays well, they're dangerous, especially the way they play defense. The first half, it was suffocating, Kentucky. They were completely discombobulated. And Ole Miss used that to turn them over, get points, and all of a sudden extend that lead. And next thing you know, you look up, you're down by 20 points, and the game's over. Because the realistic thing is it would have taken a miracle for Kentucky to come back in that game to win it. The game was essentially over at the 7-minute mark of the first half or something like that. Ole Miss squeezed the life out of Kentucky. And now they get to go. Their reward is on the road at LSU and on the road at South Carolina and at home against Mississippi State. Win 3 games, and all of a sudden your outlook starts looking really nice. 3 winnable games. Not saying you're going to win them all. 3 winnable games. If you can handle business against those 3 teams, you're going to be 9-4 going into the Auburn stretch, the Tennessee, the Florida, those games. So it should be interesting to see exactly how it goes. Zachary Turba says, huge win. It was a very huge win. Ole Miss will win 23 games. KR Milam. Michael Speck says, awesome win. It was a very awesome win. Ray Duncan says, this is what happens when we get the same amount of free throws as our opponents, and we make some in crunch time. Keidrick Jones on here says, hotty toddy, them boys ball tonight. Great win. Flim flam. Ole Miss, bye down. It was a great game. Great game. Daddy Zeke, formerly Tampa Zeke, says the boys are back. It's fantastic. Michael Speck says amazing atmosphere. Love Beard. He's commenting from Raymond, Mississippi. Brent Wells says, Brent from Birmingham, if Malik Dia finds some consistency every week, he can carry this team, i.e. versus Alabama, Malik Dia. Yes, when Malik Dia is on like he was in the first half in this game, Ole Miss is different. When Malik Dia and Matthew Murrell is on, I don't know if Ole Miss is beatable if both of those players are on. Now, this is the only game, and it was only for one half that both of the players were on. But that first half was the best half of Ole Miss basketball I have ever seen. So we'll see exactly how it looks for Ole Miss there. Ingram's Mill, Mississippi. Ray Duncan says, holiday toddy. Justin Bailey says, Connie disappointed we didn't score 100. Hotty toddy. Justin from Pascagoula. He's the pickle guy. He is that one. Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles. Definitely check them out. The best pickles you will ever put in your mouth. I got jars in the cabinet. Fantastic. Thank you, Justin. All right. Javon Campbell from New Orleans. Great win. You called it for Murrell. Yeah, I knew that a game was going to happen this season where Murrell just absolutely went off because it always happens. And if he can string some of these games together, and especially these against these teams that Ole Miss should win, you can see Ole Miss putting them away pretty quickly. And if, like I said, if Ole Miss, the moment they get to 8, I think they should sit Murrell down for 2 weeks, just to get him healthy for March. Just my opinion. Tyler Leslie says they've got us as a 5 seed right now. Honestly, that seems about right. Pretty close. Win some games at this point, and you will move up that ranking very much. Rebel Munchkin says from Terry, Mississippi, confidence seems to be growing with this team. Yeah, you can see it, especially on Sean Padula. He's acting a little bit different. He's kind of slowed down a little bit. He's controlling tempo. If the old timers that are in the thread that are watching this, he's doing a lot of stuff basketball-wise that you used to see from Michael White when he played point guard at Ole Miss. Those teams in the late 90s under Rob Evans, which coincidentally was the last time that Ole Miss scored over 50 points in a half, period, in the SEC. It was like 96, 97. It was a long time ago. I was probably at that game, if we're going to be honest. Javon Campbell from New Orleans. Joe Lunardi has Ole Miss as a 5 seed and Kentucky a 4 seed. He hasn't updated. Tomorrow it'll change a little bit. It might flip. We'll see exactly how it looks. K. Millum says, just imagine how loud it'll be in the SJB for state. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty nasty matchup. Jake says he's been to every home football game and most basketball home games. Glad to see how the atmospheres have developed into being a pretty scary place to play, competing with places like Rupp and Death Valley. Yeah, Vaught Hemingway, we always used to talk. It was kind of a running joke whenever we were on the message boards and all that about the slope of the stadium, and Vaught Hemingway was like, the noise escapes. It's just not a loud place. And it kind of turned out that Ole Miss got it kind of loud, and they have 68,000 in the stadium and all of that, and they handled it for football. And then Chris Beard comes over in this brand new, wonderfully set up arena. They basically copied Neville Arena in Oxford and in Auburn with the pavilion. And because of that, whenever Ole Miss gets going and gets cooking, those students surrounding the court on 3 sides, it's going to be problematic for a lot of people. When Ole Miss is clicking, it's going to be a very tough place to play. Javon Campbell also says the SEC is a tough conference. It's a really tough conference. William Bowles says a big win over Kentucky. Great game. That's William from Smyrna, Tennessee. Amy Cole says, let's go. Big game. That anytime you beat Kentucky, it's worth celebrating. It honestly is just worth celebrating. And I'm so excited for Ole Miss's basketball team. That win over Texas was huge. And just think, if that buzzer beater didn't go against Texas A&M, they'd be 7-3 in the conference right now. Picture how tough the SEC is, and picture how it would look if Ole Miss was 7-3 in the conference. They're still 6-4, and they have a chance to go on about a 3-game run right here to where they end up 9-4. But 7-3 would have looked really, really good. Ray Duncan says, Coach mentioned Bobby Knight again. He coaches defense like the general. He should. He was on Bobby Knight's staff for like 5 years in Texas Tech. A lot of what he knows about defensive basketball comes from Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight basically created that defense, and defense travels. You've heard that saying, defense travels. Defense definitely travels for Ole Miss. And Tyler Leslie says, Ole Miss seems to be getting better and better in every game. Yes, they have, as they're getting more confident and they can start stacking results, I think you're going to see this basketball team hit a stride. And if this team is really at their confidence peak by the time March gets here, kind of look out. Because like I said, they can beat anybody. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, we're going to shut it down right there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Tomorrow, I did a Locked On Ole Miss podcast with Dalen Flowers. We talked about National Signing Day. We talked about the wide receiver out of Hattiesburg. We talked about a little bit about the punter that Ole Miss brought in. So tomorrow morning's show is going to be all about that. Tomorrow afternoon, we are going to have Tim Thomas on the show, and he's obviously going to be talking about this. The last time that Ole Miss scored this many points, it's been a minute. But Tim Thomas beating Kentucky is probably going to get him pretty excited indeed. Anyway, I want everybody to take care, have a good time, enjoy this responsibly, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hotty toddy, everyone.